Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Between the Sharks. Today, we got our brand new to, we got a brand new. It's not just new to us. It's actually legitimately brand new engine stand. And we've got our Hurt Craigslist 350 motor. So today, we got to get this thing up off the ground and onto this engine stand, which, again, like I said, never had an engine stand before, so we're going to figure that out. That doesn't sound that exciting, but I watched many videos of people much more experienced than me drop their motors on the ground while trying to accomplish this very simple task. So stay tuned. This might get, interesting. All right, fellas. So things are already starting off in some kind of interesting format here. This is the dingle hopper fixture engine holding on bit that bolts onto the bell housing bolts on the block. Now, this is the one I just got with the brand new engine stand. And it turns out that I have another fixture from a pal of mine who gave me one I guess he didn't need, which, he didn't give me the stand, but it's still a thoughtful idea because this fixture can now live on this block, and I have another fixture that should work in that stand if this thing, when this thing inevitably takes a lot longer than I hoped to deal with. We can mount another engine onto this fixture and slide it onto our stand while this thing gets shoved in the corner to collect as much dust as possible. There's a difference though, and I don't know if there's an advantage. If you notice here, this very spiderweb B1 here has just bolt holes on the plate itself. And then the piece that bolts on, that's kind of like where your adjustment slide is. On this fella over here, it's a fixed point and a fixed point, and then this guy kind of slides. I have no idea if one is better than the other or how to tell, but I thought I'd bring that up because we may A, find out, or B, may not find out, but you guys out there in TV land may figure a reason, and it might, adjust your decision on what style you want to buy, because there are indeed two. In fact, we're going to get to another difference in engine stands that I noticed. Hey dog, let me get that. Okay, gotcha. That I noticed while watching some how to do this thing, and they're two totally different styles, but we'll get into that when we get into it. Now, first things first, I've got to get this fixture onto the back of our motor, but I was fooling around with it and I swapped the direction of the bolts, and it occurred to me that I probably could get this to bolt on with the flywheel on if I did that. However, if I do that, it's going to make it's going to make the crankshaft a whole lot heavier if I've got to take it out with the flywheel on, because the fixture will block it. So we'd have to pull it off the engine stand to remove this later. And it blocks these, oil galley cleanout thingamadoodles back here. And, we may as well check our freeze plugs while we're in there too. So the short version is we have got to get this flywheel off. All right, it's been a while since I've installed a flywheel or a flex plate, so those are probably standard. I'll have to do some research on whether or not we can reuse these once they're torqued down. But I'm, gonna go grab a torch just in case there's Loctite in there and they need to be heated to be removed, because that is a thing. We'll take a look at this pilot bushing in here eventually, and just in case, you're trying to get legitimate information, at least until 86, the small block Chevys use a 3/8 coarse thread, which is a 3/8 16. I haven't figured out exactly what the right size is, but just to refresh my memory, I had to check, and that is still, in fact, correct. 3/8 16. That's your standard coarse thread bolt. All right, gang. So these are rated ARP style looking things, and they take the 12 pointed socket. Can you guys see that? These are the sockets that you use when you've lost your normal, 6 pointed sockets, and then it strips everything for you. In this case, it's actually made for this, although I know that it's supposed to create more surface area and be less prone to stripping. I don't believe it. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and hit these with some heat under the assumption that they were indeed installed with Loctite, because it's not going to hurt anything. And for those of you fellas that, you know, aren't thinking about it yet, this flywheel is indeed bolted directly to the back of the crankshaft. So shearing these bolts is something I want to avoid at all costs, because first of all, they're rated, so they're super hard, so an extractor's not going to do anything. Drilling them out is going to be awful if I had to. And the odds that I screw up the end of the crankshaft, which is just a world of hurt I don't want to be into, and I honestly wouldn't know how to fix that. These bolts, you can't waller out these holes. They've got to fit. It's got to be right. It just has to be. We're going to, you know, apply some heat, and then we're going to take our time. Hopefully they'll break free. I think it's going to take an awful lot of, you know, torque, but maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Let's just find out. This is standard, like, MAP gas. If it's just Loctite you're worried about, you don't need acetylene or anything like that. Yeah, figured that. All right, dudes and dudettes, the trick here is to use this lineup pin as a fulcrum for a lever. Most people have these things. You just kind of jam it in the flywheel teeth like so, kind of lift while you push down on your bolt, and, you know, try not to kill yourself. Hey, look at that. That broke free. That wasn't bad at all. At least I think it did. Did it break free, or did I shear it off? Appears to be spinning. How hot are you? How hot? Not hot. Okay. All right, there we go. I'm going to loosen them all up before I pull anyone out, because the weight of the engine is actually still sitting on the flywheel. So once we're broken all the bolts, we'll lift the engine up, pop the bolts out, take the flywheel off. I like this one a little better because it fits. I have no idea where I got it from. It actually maybe came with a toolbox I bought at some point. All right, there we go. I'm gonna break them all free quickly, I hope. That was loud. All right, they're all loose. Let's get her off of the weight of this and pop the flywheel off. I lifted it up just enough. It's still sitting on the tire just a fuzz, so it won't fall too far in case I drop it. All these bolts are cracked loose, so I'm switching to an impact driver, you know, to help me back them out while I can keep a hand on it. Don't know if these washers are reusable. It's got the little star washers on there. I'll do a little Googleizing and find out. You know, there's a little bit of clutch residue from where this thing was just set up, but the original machining on this flywheel is still intact. So it's never, the clutch has never been used while this engine was running. So honestly, that went a little easier than expected. Pry bar, persuader, pry bar, persuader, persuader. I think, let's move these somewhere. I won't knock them all over the place. She's getting there. You just got to work your way around, you know. Don't pry too hard on one side. It fits pretty tight. It's a little sketchy turning it. Fingers under it. You can see right here, it's further off on this side, so I got to kind of sneak it off on this side now. It's rocking a little bit on there, but there we go. That was uneventful, except to stab myself with the pry bar right there at the end. That was dumb. There we go. All right, gang, before I do anything else, one thing I did learn by watching other people, you know, have a harder time than I want to putting an engine on an engine stand. So I'm gonna lower this back down and I'm gonna spin it around because, well, the part I need to get on the engine stand is now on the inside of our engine hoist. And yes, it is on a chain, so it will indeed swivel, but you know, that's not how I want to do it. So the way I'm going to do this is probably dumb, but I'm going to go ahead and pull my bolt here. I'm going to spin my chain halfway. I'm going to put my bolt back in. And in theory, as I lift the engine, it's going to want to rotate 180 degrees. I thought that was a pretty good plan. Oh, wait. Oh. Interesting. will make you happy about it. 9 o'clock at night and it's 90 degrees. And the mosquitoes are working way harder than I am right now. I don't really think it matters too much about the fixture. It sort of feels kind of self-explanatory, like it wants to go in the holes that it wants to go into. I think the bigger trick is just making sure that you got the right amount of thread coming out of the hole. All right guys, this is where the theatrics happen, and I'm not like taking this lightly. Honestly, on the videos that I watched where someone was trying to get an engine onto an engine stand, it was the transfer of weight that went poorly. I'm fully aware of that, which is actually really helpful, so I can kind of watch. And the issue seemed to me that as the weight was transferring literally from the engine crane hoist cherry picker to the engine stand, there was a moment where the engine stand was rocking down to earth and it sort of pulled the crane with it and everything went ass over tea kettle. So we're gonna try to not do that. First things first, like let's all, if you're gonna do something like this, just give yourself a little mantra that like, if heavy stuff falls, we're just going to get out of the way. We're not gonna try to catch it. Broken engine is already broken. We can fix it or we can't. But if it falls on us, it's gonna be a whole lot worse. We're gonna try to do this, try to not let it fall, and try to make sure that if it falls in the safest place possible. Which is, first of all, not on me, and second of all, not on the Cadillac, and not on the Model T. All right. This is pretty level, which is fortunate. It's not perfect. I do have an engine leveler, but it's on a different engine right now. So I think this is close enough. We'll find out. If it gets real hairy, we'll lower her back down, swap chains, put the leveler on there, and kind of go. I'm just eyeballing the general height. We'll look closer at this, the engine's kind of hanging in the air, but this type of engine stand actually slides in underneath. And I've seen some on the internet where they're built like a cherry picker with the legs that fold up and they fold out to a big V. That means when your engine stand's trying to slide in, it's hitting the legs of your cherry picker or your engine hoist. And then I've seen people do very sketchy stuff to deal with that. The fact that this rolls right in between the legs of the engine hoist, it's a design win for sure. Guess I can lift this and put it on there. That makes me a little nervous, but just take it slow, fellas, take it slow. And it's interesting because this is at an up angle and this is at an up angle. I might have to get it higher than I really want to. That doesn't feel right. Come back on. Got a wheel floating over there. I don't know why. Don't know what's happening. It looks okay. Because they fold up, there's just some slop in it. Because I've got it all the way back down, I'm going to adjust the chain so that this is pointing down a little bit to match the pointing up on our engine stand, because what kind of hurry are we in, you know what I mean? Alright, let's see what that does. We'll go real slow like, because looks like it's going to match up to our engine stand a little better. Dang, it's so hot in here, the camera's overheating. What a bummer. But we got her there, she's resting on it. It was, you know, I was very cautious about it. I maybe have been slightly nervous because it seems like the guys that know how to do this on YouTube just like jam it out and do it. And the guys that knock them over also seem like they're going to jam it out and do it and they fall over. So we had the engine up and down a few times, but the chains loose, so we're good. We're gonna pop this thing off. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of excited about it. I am used to leaning over a fender and just killing my back or crawling around on concrete on my knees to pull any part of an engine apart to inspect it. So this is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm actually excited to take this thing apart and see what's wrong with it. For those of you that are engine stand shopping, this is the non-collapsible style, right? This style of cherry picker, right, the legs fold up and it stores semi-compactly relative to what it is. They apparently make engine stands that also have like a V-shaped leg. However, most of the YouTube videos that I watched that ended in failure were using that type of engine stand, because the issue they were having was the legs, as they came out in a V pattern, intersected / crossed over / ran into the legs of the engine stand. So I saw people putting the engine stand legs on top of the cherry picker legs and then pushing it off. I saw all sorts of dumb stuff. This design, it rolls right in between the legs, everything fits, and you can put your engine on the stand, which seems like the safe way to go. And if you're that hard pressed for space, like this is pretty convenient that it folds up, but that's got like 2 bolts on the front cross member and 1 bolt holding the back together. So just take the bolts out. It stores in this much space. I don't think the other one has any advantages, and it has one spectacular disadvantage by being way less safe, just because it doesn't work with one of these, which is the most common engine picker-upper magoo there is on the market. All right, fellas, we're gonna leave it here for tonight. I don't want to be disappointing. I'm dying to get into this thing and really see what's going on. Definitely dying to pull the heads, see what we see what we can confirm from our tests, and just kind of look at the overall condition. But I don't want to gloss over, this process. It feels really simple, but don't forget that the higher you lift your engine on your engine stand, the higher you're raising that center of gravity. And this thing weighs significantly more than your engine stand. So don't force it, is what I'm saying. I raised and lowered that thing 3 times before I was happy with how it was lifting the engine up so that I could get it onto this stand. And YouTube is just full of videos of guys that kind of try to force it into working, push the engine just a little bit off center, an inch or 2, 3, 4, until they get it right. And that's when things really start to go bad. This may not be the most exciting video, but for some reason, my guts are just telling me that it's important to go ahead and put out as its own thing. I am indeed dying to get into this, and we're gonna get into it like step by step, piece by piece, and really see what's wrong. And there's a couple things I want to diagnose on the way, like why wasn't it oiling on the top end? And we're gonna see if we can test on some stuff as we take it apart to fully understand exactly what we need to do to put it back together. But before we do that, if you're putting an engine on an engine stand for the first time, or the second time, or the third time, there is no doubt from my experience doing it that it took me over a half an hour after the fixture was already mounted to the motor just to get it onto the engine stand safely. And so here are the couple of things that I learned, and keep these in mind, because the reality is, as you're transferring the weight from your cherry picker down to your engine stand, because your cherry picker engine hoist is on a pivot, as it comes down, your engine stand kind of needs to roll backwards. And if it doesn't, well, it's gonna bind up a little bit, and it's gonna settle in quickly and kind of like with a hard thud, at which point, if your engine stand is off balance because the weight is between the engine stand and the engine hoist, it's pretty easy to get it starting to fall over. And I think what people think, having watched these YouTube disasters unfold, they seem to think that the engine hoist is going to suddenly be like a safety that catches it. But what I witnessed is, by the time it's already going over on the engine stand, it is well past the center of gravity on the engine hoist. So it goes and it takes the hoist with it. So yeah, remember, just the higher you get that thing,
the easier it is to get the center of gravity off enough to like create a problem. So do indeed take your time. I do highly recommend this model of engine stand because it does work with the most common style of engine hoist. And good luck on your projects out there. I hope this, I hope this one was worthwhile because it may not be the most exciting video in the world, but I'm glad that it wasn't because we didn't drop our engine stand, really. So anyway, if you've made it this far, please consider subscribing, follow along as we tear this engine down, and you know what? At least speaking from right now, I think we're gonna do what it takes and try to get it put back together as well, which will be a first for me, but we're gonna get there. But I think I can. Anyway, good luck on your projects out there. We will see you next time on Between the Shocks.